All right, so welcome everybody. Good morning. My name is Sergio Carrera and I'm working at CEPS. And I'm really honored and happy to open the first kickoff conference of the CHACHIPEN project, paving the way for truth and reconciliation processes to address anti-Gypsyism in Europe. Now, what is CHACHIPEN? CHACHIPEN means truth in the Romanian language. A very important, let's say, flagship that will direct the course of this project, as one of the key objectives of CHACHIPEN is to advance the recognition and response to historically rooted and institutionalized manifestations of anti-Gypsyism in Europe. Now, the project pays particular attention to scaling up Truth and Reconciliation Commission's model. We've seen this model implemented around the world in the past, in countries like Australia, Canada, South Africa. Fact-based inquiries, so important in the healing and in the, also advancing justice for victims of crimes and human rights violations. Now, we also aim at bringing this model home in a way of tailoring or designing this kind of model in a way that matches the specificities of the human rights abuses experienced in the past and at present by Roma communities in Europe. Really thinking about an EU-specific model, also based on lessons learned from experiences in Germany and Sweden. Now we are coming a long way, meaning not only as CEPS, but also in cooperation with the Alliance Against Anti-Gypsyism. We published a study in 2019 precisely on scaling up Roma inclusion strategies that was published in the European Parliament, and that was the seed for this project, for the CHACHIPEN project. The objectives of the project are really to investigate truth and how anti-Gypsyism has become institutionalized form of racism across the European Union. We are also very interested in mapping the state of play, in acknowledging the darkest chapters of anti-Gypsyism in European Union, but also some light chapters in addressing some of these root causes of historically embedded forms of discrimination against the Roma communities. Also highlighting promising practice. Can we learn something from independent commissions of experts that have been set up in countries like Sweden or Germany? The project also pays particular focus, and we are really happy that this kind of project also aims at empowering Roma activists to advocate for truth and reconciliation processes, but also gathering learning from personal testimonies about their experiences. How is it to experience anti-Gypsyism? And not last but not least, raising awareness, changing narratives, so important, changing narratives for recognizing anti-Gypsyism and establishing wider alliances on this. Now, CHACHIPEN is a partnership, also at CEPS. I would like to thank Lina Bosiolute, who has been one of the motors at CEPS putting forward this project and the successful start also of this project and today's event. And my colleague Miriam Mir at CEPS and Jean-Luc, who is behind the scenes as well. But as I say, it's a partnership. Without our partners, CHACHIPEN would have not happened. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Jonathan Mack at the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma, Central Council, and also the European Roma Grassroots Organization Network, ERGO, Gabriela Habranova, who will be moderating the first panel, for their cooperation. Without you guys, this wouldn't have happened, so we are really grateful. But also our national partners, very important. Federación de Asociaciones Gitanas de Cataluña in Spain, and also Fast Forward Association in Romania. Big thanks for joining this effort. And then we have a number of supporting partners who are great also to have in this initiative. Now, this is thanks also to the European Commission. So CHACHIPEN is funded by DG Justice, and we are again very grateful that the Commission is trusting us in bringing forward and contributing with research, with awareness raising and civil society initiatives in this agenda. And we also come with the support by the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That, of course, for us is an honor to have that support as well in a country that is playing such an active role in addressing anti-Gypsyism. So this is everything I have to say in the short time allocated. Now, Gabriela, who is the director of ERGO, will be moderating the panel. Gabriela, it's your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio, and welcome everybody on my part. So I'm from the ERGO network, and I'm really here. I'm very glad we are here, inspired by the resolution that was initiated by Soraya Post, a Romani member of the European Parliament, and this initiative of the civil society. We are here for the sake of creating essential mutual trust and to set up reconciliation commissions, acknowledge persecution, exclusion, and dissolvement of Roma throughout the centuries. And we really believe that we will set a path to document these in the official papers and engage with Roma experts and various stakeholders to taking this task forward. You can, during the event, you can follow us on Twitter. So I will just take a few housekeeping rules here. We have a Twitter, CHACHIPEN EU. We're also using several hashtags, for example, no anti-Gypsyism, truth reconciliation, EU for Roma, EU anti-racism. And this event will be also web streaming on the event page. You might see it when we were sending out our invitations. It's SEP's YouTube page, and we also have Romea, the Roma media agency from the Czech Republic, that it's sharing live on the Facebook. As was already said, I would really like to remind all the speakers to speak very slowly because we have a parallel interpretation in Romani language. This interpretation is done by experienced translators Gyula Vámosi and Sejdo Jasarov. We are very glad to have you here. And all the speakers will have about 7 minutes for the intervention. And yeah, you're invited to smile to the camera. We will be also taking some screenshots. And please, just those who, as we are on webinar, so those just who are in the panel to have their cameras on, and the others will come and the panels that it's designed for them. The first panel, it will be situating the discussion on recognizing historically rooted anti-Gypsyism within the wider EU and national policy context. And we have very distinguished guests from different institutions, but also a testimony that we want to bring you. And I think that without further ado, I would like to invite Věra Jourová, Vice President of the European Commission for the Values and Transparency, to take the screen.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Can you hear me well? Is it okay? Fine. I promise I will speak slowly because I want to enjoy my time, which I can spend with you this morning, and I am very honored to open today's event dedicated to such an important topic. CHACHIPEN means truth, and I am sure that the truth, justice and trust, which are in the title of today's event, are all the values without which we cannot continue. And that's why it's important that we dedicate our time to these values and these topics, so that also to agree on how to proceed further, because we have common interest. Respect for fundamental rights, human dignity and equality are among the fundamental values of the European Union. Yet, looking back to our European history, we have unfortunately witnessed how European leaders have deprived Roma of their fundamental rights for centuries. This has dramatically reached a peak during the totalitarian regimes and in the atrocities of the Holocaust. Remembering the Holocaust, this darkest chapter of European history, is essential for understanding Europe today, for understanding the true value of universal human rights, democracy, rule of law, and non-discrimination on which our union has been built. Sadly, Roma people continue to suffer from systematic injustices in the form of police violence, collective punishments, unfair judgments, hate speech, and violence, including forced sterilization of Roma women or discrimination and segregation of Roma children in schools. Despite all the efforts of the EU, other institutions and individuals, anti-Gypsyism has become a norm rather than exception in public discourse, and this is no longer acceptable. First and foremost, to combat discrimination, racism, and violence deeply rooted in the past, we have to uncover and recognize the truth. We have to try to reconcile with the past. To that end, the European Commission has adopted a new 10-year strategic plan to support Roma in the EU. This plan includes the ambitious EU Roma strategic framework for equality, inclusion and participation, as well as a Council recommendation, which was unanimously adopted in the Council on the 15th of March. This recommendation for EU member states includes a comprehensive list of measures to combat discrimination and anti-Gypsyism, advance social inclusion, promote participation and active citizenship, and ensure effective equal access to quality mainstream education, employment, health, and housing. It is even more important in this context, as the member states self-committed to prevent and eliminate segregated healthcare services and ensure recognition of and reparation for past injustices, including the forced sterilization of Roma women. The Council recommendation comes in very timely, as, for example, the Czech lawmakers are now discussing a draft bill to compensate victims of forced sterilization. I trust this draft compensation law will be adopted in order to balance the very serious human rights violations, while at the same time sending a clear signal to our society not to repeat similar atrocities. By adopting the recommendation, member states have shown their determination to address the multiple challenges Roma communities face in the EU. There is a clear commitment to promote awareness of Roma cultures, language, and history, including the memory of the Roma Holocaust and reconciliation processes. This can be achieved, inter alia, through relevant trainings for teachers and designing appropriate school curricula. Awareness is vital for reducing prejudice and anti-Gypsyism as important causes of discrimination. To complement these policy measures, the Commission continues supporting awareness raising about the lessons from totalitarian regimes and preserve the memories of the victims. It is done within our European Remembrance strand of the Europe for Citizens program. Measures need to be taken at national and local levels to enforce all legal safeguards against anti-Gypsyism as a specific form of racism, xenophobia, hate crime, and hate speech. Our Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, the Council Framework Decision on Racism and Xenophobia, as well as the Racial Equality Directive are the relevant legal instruments or of detrimental importance of this battle. The fight against anti-Gypsyism is also an integral part of the national action plans against racism that are to be adopted by the member states. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed the extreme exposure of excluded and marginalized Roma communities to both short-term negative health impacts and to medium-term socioeconomic impacts. Therefore, Member States' commitment to equality is essential also to address the COVID-19 pandemic effectively and recover at the earliest. Only together we can make the best use of all the available tools to achieve measurable results over the next 10 years and to tackle long-standing injustices, discrimination and exclusion of Roma. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I wish you a very fruitful discussion, very useful event, and I am honestly looking forward to our future cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Commissioner. Thank you for addressing us these important notes and highlighting the legal instruments, but also that we are in this together. I think that it's important that all stakeholders, Roma experts, civil society, European Commission, and driving also this initiative through the European Parliament, that we can actually have the next programming period and the new implementation of the framework at the national level to make the real difference. Thank you very much, and I would like to invite a Commissioner for Human Rights from the Council of Europe, Dunja Mijatovic, to take her floor and also address us in this welcoming panel.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me. Good. Warm greetings from Strasbourg, dear organizers and participants of the conference, and dear organizers of the CHACHIPEN project. I am very happy to take part in the launch of this project, but also to be able to be live present nowadays when our lives are happening online. And sometimes we have video messages as well, but this is also a good way to interact and to be able to really exchange on such an important topics as the one we are discussing today. The CHACHIPEN project is a landmark development which concretizes years of advocacy in favor of initiating a pan-European process of truth and reconciliation regarding past human rights violations inflicted on Roma in Europe. Promoting truth and reconciliation has been on my agenda when it comes to the human rights of Roma and travelers, and I'm really convinced that better exploring and exposing at the same time the history of Roma in Europe is a precondition to meaningful and sustainable improvements of their human rights situation. History includes many tragic chapters, but also positive developments, and the contributions that Roma, travelers, Sinti and other groups have brought to the European societies across centuries must be duly acknowledged. And now is a high time to do this. Exposing history, doing justice to the victims of the past abuse and providing adequate remedies are crucial steps to foster reconciliation and in a way trust in one another. I therefore very much support the project's objective of promoting the setting up of truth and reconciliation commissions in different countries, drawing from the experiences of what has been achieved, as already mentioned, in Sweden and more recently in Germany. Importantly, this work also aims at drawing lessons from the past to prevent and remedy current and future human rights violations. This is at the heart of my mandate as Commissioner for Human Rights. Anti-Gypsyism, which builds over centuries of abuses, forms the bedrock for the repetition of serious human rights violations. Governments should start addressing anti-Gypsyism far more seriously if they want to live up to their international human rights commitments and meet the challenge of promoting real, genuine, effective equality. We have to move from paper to action. And I trust that a better understanding of the mechanism which have shaped institutionalized racism against Roma and travelers will help member states to tackle it more effectively. The outcomes of the project could also, in my view, greatly contribute to designing new ways of raising awareness of society about Roma history, in particular in the field of education. Last but not least, I find it crucial that a project aims at empowering Roma activists to take part in transitional justice processes. I'm convinced that such processes can succeed only if they are fully owned and driven by the communities concerned. And this is something we learned before. This is not a new formula. This is actually learning on mistakes, that on many occasions when any project of this similarity or kind was done excluding the communities, it failed. So I think, you know, at this stage, we are all also more equipped with knowledge and recognition on how we can tackle these issues more prominently and more successfully. I will carefully follow the implementation of this project, in particular when it comes to the setting up the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions at national level. And I will take this dimension into account in my country work regarding the human rights of Roma and travelers. This is extremely challenging, but at the same time important project, which will require sustained efforts from different actors. And there is nothing more difficult than curing amnesia regarding upsetting historical episodes and uprooting deeply ingrained stereotypes and biases. At a time of disinformation and alternative truths, it is crucial to propose a fairer narrative when it comes to Roma and travelers, grounded on some knowledge and understanding of the past. This is to be done in the name of justice, for the respect of the victims, but also for the integrity and advancement of European society as a whole. As it is, after all, about the history of all of us in Europe. Only united, recognizing the diversity and our differences and respecting it, we can be on the successful path. Thank you very much.
We also thank you very much for your addressing remarks, and especially that you are committed to the values of the project and yourself and your work for the trust and reconciliation. And we're looking forward continuing to deepening our relationship also in the course of the project, and especially in making the change. And as you said, moving from the papers to the actions on the ground, because there we want to see the change. Thank you one more time, and I would like to ask Michaela Küchler, a special representative of the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs for relations with Jewish organizations, issues regarding anti-Semitism, international Sinti and Roma affairs, and Holocaust remembrance. Germany also takes the presidency of IHRA, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and we have Michaela, the ambassador, here with us, so please take the floor.
Good morning, thank you very much. Good morning, guten Morgen, dobre rano. 8 April is a good day for the Roma community. It marks the 50th anniversary of the first International Roma Congress, which was a strong sign of self-empowerment. But still, unfortunately, there is a very long way to go. It's a shame that 50 years after the First World Roma Congress, Roma are still the target of marginalization, discrimination, and violence. In the past year, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown especially clearly the challenges facing Roma communities, how vulnerable they remain, both in terms of health and of their socio-economic situation. Across Europe, and Germany is no exception, we saw Roma being made scapegoats for the spread of the virus. That's shameful, and we must take a clear stance against it. The key to improving the situation of Roma is to fight anti-Gypsyism. Anti-Gypsyism is a root cause of social exclusion and discrimination. The international community has been slow to recognize that. It was not until the new EU Roma strategy under your diligent direction, Ms. Jourova, was presented by the European Commission last October that the fight against anti-Gypsyism was defined as an overarching issue. Anti-Gypsyism is not new. Indeed, it is centuries old. And during the Second World War, it came to a head as anti-Gypsyism became an essential element of the persecution and annihilation policies against Roma perpetrated by Nazi Germany and its collaborators. Despite great efforts, the stereotypes and prejudices about Roma have not been delegitimized or discredited vigorously enough. Unfortunately, they can still be deployed largely unchallenged. This continued widespread acceptance of anti-Gypsyism is linked in part to the long existing neglect of this history. Still today, this history, especially about the attempt to annihilate the largest minority in Europe during the Second World War, this history remains under-researched and often downplayed. During the German presidencies of the Council of the European Union and of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, as well as during the current presidency of the Council of Europe Committee of Ministers, Germany has been dedicated to take the international exchange on fighting anti-Gypsyism forward. I am delighted that while chairing the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, we succeeded on 8 October last year in adopting a non-legally binding working definition of anti-Gypsyism, anti-Roma discrimination. 34 member countries, from Australia through the Czech Republic, through Estonia, Germany, France, to Argentina, the United States, and Canada. 34 member countries agreed on a wording drafted in close cooperation by participants from the world of politics, the academic community, and civil society, most importantly, Roma organizations throughout the world. Together, we have created a tool which gives us criteria to describe what we understand by anti-Gypsyism. Though non-legally binding, it can serve as a practical tool in helping to understand anti-Gypsyism and the various ways it can manifest. The working definition lists examples which can also help in identifying cases of hate speech and anti-Gypsyism in the media, for instance. I very much hope that this new definition will have a similar impact as the working definition of anti-Semitism did. No one can still deny that anti-Gypsyism is a problem for society as a whole. The German government is scheduled to endorse the definition still this week and advocate for its broad implementation. It would send an important signal if other members of the European Union and beyond were to disseminate this working definition nationally and help ensure its practical application and implementation. This will require efforts on the part of state institutions, the judiciary, and the police, as well as civil society organizations. And I'm glad to be in a position to say that already a couple of civil society organizations have adopted the anti-Gypsyism definition. The first one was the European Union of Jewish Students, but also the Foundation Remembrance, Responsibility and Future in Germany has adopted it. So these are very good signs in taking forward this new definition. But also conferences like this one show that we are moving in the right direction. There is indeed the sense that governments, institutions, and individuals are finally beginning to wake up. I would like to thank all partners of the CHACHIPEN project. The German government has decided to support this project because it firmly believes in building coalition around the issues of countering anti-Gypsyism. After all, action in this area is critical for the future of the Roma communities, but also on the viability of democratic societies around the world. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very successful conference and a very successful meeting. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Madam Kuchler, and thank you for reminding us of the challenges that Roma faced 50 years after recognizing the Romani flag, the Romani anthem, and the Romani nation at the 8th of April, but also after being 1,000-year presence in the European territory. And thank you also for bringing up the IHRA definition as a new tool that should be implemented. And thank you for this call for the member states to take it up. And I actually also appreciate that this call also goes to the civil society. As you mentioned, some organizations that already took and implemented the definition. So thank you for reminding us that, and we should work with it further. And to actually round a little bit the situation and also to balance the panel, we also want to bring a person who actually herself faced the kind of biggest type of anti-Gypsyism or discrimination that actually we could have in our history, and that was a woman, a great also friend of mine, a social worker Elena Gorolova, who was a survivor of forced sterilization from the Czech Republic. She will bring her story to us. She will be speaking in Czech, and she will be translated side by side by Gwendolyn Albert. So it might mean that there will be little extra time taking, so you don't need to use a translation channel. Just please follow Elena and Gwen on our main screen. So thank you for being here with us. And Elena, Eleno, prosím tě, můžeš začít mluvit. Děkuju.
Krásné dobré ráno a chtěla bych poděkovat za to, že jsem mohla, nebo jsem u toho přítomna, takže moc děkuji.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to very much thank you all for inviting me here.
Já bych ráda se s váma podělila hlavně o ten náš boj, který vedeme, o té nedobrovolné sterilizaci.
I would like to tell you about the struggle and the fight that we have been waging here with regard to the forced sterilization.
Už je to několik let, je to asi 17 let, kdy ženy vlastně bojují, aby byly odškodněné.
It's about 17 years that the women have been fighting to be compensated.
Nebylo to velice lehké, tento vlastně dlouhý boj vedeme a ženy pomaličku ztrácejí naději.
It has been a very long time, and it is difficult for the women to keep up their hope that they will one day see justice for this.
Taky některé ženy už mezi námi nejsou, protože zemřely.
And unfortunately, several of the women are no longer alive.
Protože měly zdravotní potíže a taky to bylo i spojené některé s tou sterilizací.
Many of them have had medical complications that they associate with the sterilization.
Ráda bych řekla, že velice museli jsme teď tvrdě zabojovat toto, aby i ty ostatní ženy nám neodešly a dostali vlastně nějakou tu kompenzaci.
So we have been fighting very much to keep the women together as a group in the fight for this compensation.
Začali jsme společně s ostatními, kteří nám vlastně v tom boji pomáhají, a jako je Liga lidských práv, Gwendolyn, Kumar, Šimunková. Jsou to lidi velice výborné, kteří opravdu stojí za námi, aby nám pomohli, hlavně k tomu našemu odškodnění u vlády.
And there are many people who have helped us with this fight, many other allies such as the League of Human Rights, Gwendolyn Albert, Kumar Vishwanathan, Monika Shimunkova, and people associated with the government who have been helping us in our fight for compensation.
Taky jsme udělali s ženami takovou menší jakoby demonstraci před nemocnicí Fifejdy, kdy vlastně jsme vypouštěli růžové balónky, na tom bylo napsané číslo jakoby toho číslo 603, abychom podpořili tento zákon.
And the women themselves demonstrated here in front of one of the hospitals where this happened. We released pink balloons into the sky, and the balloons had the number of the bill, number 603, on it.
Vlastně, jak jsem říkala, že jsme museli trošičku tvrdě, to znamená, že teďkom jakoby naše vláda začala nějak nás, jakoby jsme začali prostě být pro ně, jakoby, že asi nás podpoří.
And now it seems hopeful that the government probably is going to be supporting this draft bill for compensation.
Takže vlastně při prvním čtení v poslanecké sněmovně jsme prošli a to je velice velký úspěch pro nás.
So there's a big success in that the bill proposing our compensation has finally undergone a first reading in the lower house.
Taky jsme se setkali s ministryní, s paní Schillerovou ohledně finance, jak by nás mohla podpořit. Tato žena byla velice jako k nám, že ano, že by mohla nás podpořit a velice tohleto téma ji zajímalo.
We also met with Finance Minister Schillerova, and she expressed her personal support for this issue and assured us that the financing should not be a problem.
Taky jsme se setkali s ostatními, jakoby z poslanecké sněmovny a byli vlastně při nás, kteří ano, že by to odškodnění mohli jsme dostat.
And we have also met with other members of the lower house who expressed their support for our receiving this compensation.
Co by to pro ty ženy znamenalo, to odškodnění v dnešní době, to už jakoby není navrácení toho, aby si koupil někdo dítě, ale je to hlavně o to, že by ty ženy, které mají zdravotní problémy, mohly za tyto finance například jít někde do nějakých lázní, koupit si ty drahší léky, které potřebují pro svoje zdraví.
Of course, the compensation will not restore what was taken from us, but what it will help some of the women to do is to heal, to undertake a process of spending more time on their healing, for example, going to a spa or of being able to afford more kind of medical treatment than they can afford at present.
Já už o svém příběhu nemluvím, protože vím, že spousta lidí o tím mojím příběhu ví, kde se mi to provedlo vlastně v roce 1990 po 2 císařských řezech, kdy nastala sterilizace, tak už o tom moc nemluvím, protože ráda bych vlastně řekla, co je teď vlastně nového a jak pro ty ženy to hlavně znamená, že už jsme se dostali aspoň do toho prvního čtení.
So I won't be speaking much today about what happened to me. It's probably very well known that this happened to me in the year 1990 during a second cesarean delivery. I would much rather speak with you today about what the news is in terms of the compensation bill and what it will mean for the women when they finally achieve compensation.
Chci ještě říct, že vlastně od samého začátku, když jsme začali, tak jsme byli jenom samé romské ženy. A teď po nějaké době se přidávají i neromské ženy, ale těch romských žen mám za to, že je pořád nás víc.
I'd also like to let you know that our group in the beginning was mostly only Romani women. And in recent years, non-Romani women to whom this has also happened have joined our efforts and are helping us a great deal. But it remains the case that it is still mostly Romani women who are speaking up about this issue.
A taky bych ráda ještě řekla, že vlastně to, co jsme všechno probojovali ženy za těch 17 let, tak můžeme si i poděkovat za to, že to není ostuda, co jsme všechno udělali, protože v dnešní době už se to v nemocnicích tak nestává, jako se to stávalo hlavně nám.
And I would also like to say that it's been worth it to do this fight, because our understanding is that this is not happening today in the hospitals to the extent that it was happening when it happened to us.
Protože ženy některé nebyly jenom po sterilizaci, jak po císařských řezech sterilizované, byly i třeba při potratu, měly jiné problémy a přitom tu sterilizaci jim provedli.
The number of ways that this happened to women is large. It didn't just happen during the performance of cesarean deliveries. For example, it's also happened to women who sought abortions and were sterilized without their consent during the abortions. So there are many ways that this has happened.
Já myslím, že čas už tak nějak vypršel. I think we are about to finish your presentation. Jestli chceš říct nějaký poslední slovo.
Že teda všem moc děkuji, kteří s námi spolupracují. Děkuji i tobě, Gabino, za to, protože ty s náma spolupracuješ od začátku, a všem ostatním, kteří dnes jsou na této konferenci. Ráda je zdravím a mějte se krásně a hlavně všecko ve zdraví.
So I would very much like to thank everybody who has been helping us. Gabina, you especially have been helping us from the very beginning. I greet you all of the panelists here at this conference today. Thank you very much for your support. And I hope everyone will continue to enjoy good health.
Thank you so much. Děkujeme ti moc, Alenko, že jsi tady s náma dneska byla. I will continue in English. We are very glad that Elena could have been here with us today, as also all the other participants of the panel. And I think that from us, we really wish you that the support for the bill will come, because I think this is a really important milestone that actually has to be taken place. I think that especially in the case of sterilization, we already have an acknowledgement that the sterilization happened, but the reconciliation still didn't take place. So I think that's the step that really needs to show a sort of a kind of signal, send the signal to the other governments as well, that this has to be done and really make things for this, for the women. Little emotional, but yeah, thank you everybody. We still have a few minutes that we can take up with this panel, and we prepared to make a little interaction, just use a little bit time that we are having. I will ask Sergio to get in to ask questions for our maybe one question for our panelists before we close it also with one more intervention. Sergio.
Thank you, Gabriela. I'm also a little bit moved. So first of all, thank you, to all the opening panel for, highlighting the role of this project, the potential that this project has. We are, very grateful for, your contribution and support. I would like to come back to the question of, how do we go about monitoring what is happening now, in terms of monitoring the daily manifestations of anti-Gypsyism across all European countries. So this is indeed not a question for this country or the other, and we see it really across the European Union. And it also links up to the, it's very much embedded, at least our research shows how much, together with Julius Rostas, that I also would like to acknowledge his profound contribution and cooperation with us in this, in linking it up with the rule of law. You know, how do we understand anti-Gypsyism as a question of, you know, a threat to the rule of law, or when the rule of law does not work? So Commissioner Jourova was mentioning examples of police violence, or, you know, questions of how judicial non-independence or certain judicial interventions that still have these stereotypings. How do we go about monitoring this and getting an objective picture of these realities on the ground? So perhaps my question will be more for Vice President Jourova. Thank you.
Unmute, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I will reply immediately, but I'm also full of emotions, and I want to give message to Madame Elena. Is she still with us? Gorolová. Madame Elena, are you with us? Jste ještě s námi?
Ano.
Já vám chci moc poblahopřát. Je to neuvěřitelný úspěch. Měla jsem veliké obavy, že ten zákon zapadne v době pandemie, že to bude nějakým způsobem odsunuto. Vy jste to vybojovali. Já trošku něco vím o tom politickém pozadí tohoto boje a skutečně, když jsem zjistila, že to má šanci na přijetí a že už to prošlo prvním čtením, tak jsem byla velice šťastná. I just had to congratulate Madame Elena for gradual success in the struggle to have the law on compensation for the sterilized Roma women, because I know something about the political background and the difficulty of the momentum in the Czech politics, also due to the pandemic. So I'm really happy that this is going in the right direction. From time to time, miracles are happening, and sometimes we see that we can behave like decent people, recognizing the real values, and I'm really happy. Now back to your question. I will give you maybe a little bit technical answer. Yeah, who should do the monitoring? It should be done through 4 channels. I counted all of them. The official places where the Commission is monitoring the situation through different programs. The member states should have very good overview of the extremist scene, because this is about violence and extremism. So that's the hard line. Yeah, the member states should know what's happening in that sphere. Also, the member states should have a good monitoring system coming from the governmental agencies plus the ombudsman. All these institutions should do the permanent monitoring and permanent collection of data. On European side, I skipped the European side, but we work with the Fundamental Rights Agency now on a big survey which should measure and assess the situation. But coming back to the member states, I think there is also a lot of work for academia, and we should have solid assessment from the academic circles on where we are and what might be also the solutions. I believe in the cooperation with academic sphere. But the 4th channel I will mention, and you might not be surprised, I think the best monitoring regarding hate speech against Roma people and the level of anti-Gypsyism, also with the regional breakdown. So the regional specific situation can be achieved from the online media. And this is what we try to get from Facebook, Google, Microsoft, from TikTok now newly, from several others. We want to achieve and obtain more data to be able to react on increased trend in all specific member states. Nobody at this moment has better data than online big tech. And we need this data to be delivered to us, who are the decision makers, who are also distributed of big public money to prevent the situation to worsen and also to heal the problems. And we will do more with the big tech to get more granular data, not only regarding the regions and countries, but also regarding the different layers of the society. And by the way, it's not sufficient to have data and to have better knowledge of the trend, which, as I said before, is now the best place where we can obtain that knowledge is from the big tech platforms. But we have proposed the legislation against hate speech online. And this is a big step forward. We have to be stubborn on pushing for enforcement of law online. And our digital services directive, which the Commission adopted in December, I'm sure this is the necessary and good step forward. So from monitoring and data collection through assessment to setting the rules, I think that this is the necessary way Europe has to go. And this is what we are trying to do. So sorry I was long and I was maybe too technical.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you, Madam Jourova. And I think that with this one, we would actually also regarding the time, we will proceed with the closing this panel. One more time, thank you all the panelists for being with us, taking the time and making the kickoff of the CHACHIPEN project, which is paving the way for addressing, for recognizing the truth and addressing the reconciliation and fighting anti-Gypsyism in Europe. And for closing and moving to the other panel, we would still play you a video with Romani Rose. He's a chairperson of Central Council of German, Sinti and Roma, who are also partner of this project. And yeah, so please, if the technicians can start the video. Perfect.
Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, ich begrüße Sie zu der heutigen digitalen Konferenz und bin froh, dass ich zu Beginn einige Worte an Sie richten kann. Über Antiziganismus kann nicht gesprochen werden, ohne dessen extremste und radikalste Form, die Vernichtung von 500.000 Sinti und Roma im Holocaust, zum Zentrum des Nachdenkens zu machen. Die systematische Entrechtung und Vernichtung im NS-Staat stellte einen tiefen Bruch in der Geschichte der Sinti und Roma in Deutschland und in ihren jeweiligen anderen Heimatländern dar. Es gibt bei uns, Sinti und Roma, keine Familie, die nicht vom nationalsozialistischen Völkermord in existenzieller Weise betroffen war. Diese Erfahrung absoluter Rechtlosigkeit hat sich tief in unser kollektives Gedächtnis eingebrannt und unsere Identität als nationale Minderheit geprägt. Während die Anerkennung der Shoah die Voraussetzung für die Wiederaufnahme Deutschlands in die internationale Staatengemeinschaft nach 1945 war, wurde das Verbrechen an unserer Minderheit verdrängt und geleugnet. Es fand weder eine politische noch eine juristische oder historische Aufarbeitung dieses Verbrechens statt. Erst durch die Selbstorganisation von Sinti und Roma in der Bürgerrechtsbewegung in Deutschland gelang es, die Deutungsmacht der ehemaligen Täter zu brechen und dem rassistischen Blick unsere eigene Geschichte gegenüberzustellen. Ein wichtiger Meilenstein auf dem Weg zu dieser Selbstorganisation der Sinti und Roma war der Hungerstreik in der Gedenkstätte Dachau an Ostern 1980. 12 Sinti und Roma darunter Überlebende des Holocaust und Unterstützer aus der Mehrheitsgesellschaft, lenkten mit dieser weltweit beachteten Aktion den Blick der Öffentlichkeit auf die fortgesetzte Diskriminierung der Minderheit, insbesondere in den Behörden, Bildungseinrichtungen in Deutschland und auf den Völkermord, an dem Sinti und Roma dem 35 Jahre nach Ende des Zweiten Weltkriegs noch immer die Anerkennung verwehrt blieb. 1982 empfing die Bundesregierung unter Helmut Schmidt schließlich eine Delegation des Zentralrats und erkannte erstmals den Völkermord an Sinti und Roma an. Das Europäische Parlament folgte im April 2015. Wenn wir heute an die NS-Verbrechen und an den Holocaust erinnern, müssen sich alle Menschen in Europa gleichzeitig für Rechtsstaatlichkeit und eine wehrhafte Demokratie einsetzen. Denn historisches Erinnern bedeutet immer auch gelebte Verantwortung für die Gegenwart. Heute erleben wir, wie nationalistische und populistische Bewegungen die Spaltung Europas immer weiter vorantreiben. So werden Menschen wieder ausgegrenzt und zu Sündenböcken gemacht. Wissenschaftliche Studien und Umfragen in Deutschland wie in Europa zeigen auch eine erschreckend hohe Ablehnung von Sinti und Roma. Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, der Antiziganismus ist ebenso wie der Antisemitismus seit Jahrhunderten in der europäischen Geschichte tief verwurzelt. Antiziganistische Vorurteile sind längst in der Mitte der Gesellschaft eingedrungen und haben dramatische Auswirkungen auf den Alltag von Sinti und Roma in ihren jeweiligen europäischen Heimatländern, in dem sie bereits seit mehr als 600 Jahren leben. Der Antiziganismus verhindert eine gleichberechtigte Teilhabe von Sinti und Roma in nahezu allen gesellschaftlichen Bereichen. Die gezielte und systematische Politik der Ausgrenzung und des Rassismus ist so umfassend, dass viele Roma heute in Zuständen leben müssen, die einer Apartheid gleichkommen. Die Ursachen für diese unhaltbaren Zustände liegen im Antiziganismus. Seine Ächtung ist nicht zuerst die Aufgabe der Minderheit selbst. Es ist die Aufgabe der Gesellschaft und ihrer Institutionen. Es ist die Aufgabe der europäischen Institutionen und der europäischen Staaten. Denn Sinti und Roma sind gleichberechtigte Bürgerinnen und Bürger in ihren Heimatländern. Diese Werte sind in den Verfassungen vieler Länder niedergeschrieben. Die heutige Konferenz leistet einen wichtigen Beitrag zur weiteren Anerkennung des Antiziganismus als gesamtgesellschaftliches Problem. In den vergangenen Jahren gab es auf höchster politischer Ebene einige Initiativen, die den Antiziganismus in den Blick genommen haben. So empfahl das Europäische Parlament im Oktober 2017 den EU-Mitgliedstaaten und Expertenkommission über Antiziganismus auf nationaler Ebene einzurichten. Der Zentralrat hat bereits über viele Jahre an die Bundesregierung die Forderung gestellt, eine solche Kommission einzurichten. Mit der Einsetzung einer unabhängigen Expertenkommission zum Antiziganismus im Jahre 2019 hat die Bundesregierung diese lange gestellte Forderung des Zentralrats erfüllt. Das Gremium untersucht die Ursachen, Erscheinungsformen und Konsequenzen des Antiziganismus in Deutschland und entwickelt Gegenstrategien. Im Herbst 2020 hat die EU-Kommission einen strategischen Rahmen zur gleichberechtigten Teilhabe von Sinti und Roma vorgelegt. Der Zentralrat bewertet das als eine historische Chance, endlich die Ausgrenzung unserer Minderheit in Europa anzuerkennen und damit den jahrhundertealten Antiziganismus zu überwinden. Der 8. April, der internationale Roma-Tag, ist ein wichtiger Anlass, Politik und Gesellschaft an ihre historische Verantwortung zu erinnern. Es ist beschämend, dass die mit fast 12 Millionen Angehörige größte Minderheit Europas heute immer noch mit Ausgrenzung, Diskriminierung, Apartheid und Gewalt konfrontiert wird und ihnen zu einem großen Teil die grundlegenden Bürger- und Menschenrechte verwehrt werden. Die Entwicklung hin zu einem demokratischen Europa, zu der Demokratie, in der wir heute leben, war und ist keine Selbstverständlichkeit. Der Antiziganismus und der Antisemitismus zielen nur vordergründig auf die Angehörigen der Sinti und Roma und Juden. Tatsächlich aber bedeuten sie einen Angriff auf die Demokratie, auf den Rechtsstaat und auf unsere gemeinsamen europäischen Werte. Vor allen Dingen deshalb müssen Antiziganismus genauso wie Antisemitismus in Europa endlich geächtet und konsequent bekämpft werden. Ich danke Ihnen.
I would like to thank you, Romane Rose, for his video message. We know that Romane Rose is a lifetime fighter against anti-Gypsyism, and with Germany really setting a great example for the other countries, which we also want to show in our project. I want to say one more time thank you and say bye to those who has to leave us for the first panel. It was really a pleasure to have you here. And I would like us to move to our first session of the conference, and I'm giving the floor to Jonathan Mack, who is a moderator of the next session. Jonathan.